Hello, everyone, trivia competitors. It is Glenn with the Northeast Georgia History Center, and we are very excited to have our very first trivia contest here. We've got a great program. We've got some great questions. And, of course, I'm dressed as a Revolutionary War soldier, but I'm afraid, given the circumstances, I'm going to have to harsh everyone's history buzz because the dynamics of this program require that I be able to actually see. So I apologize for the quasi-1960s glasses with the 1770s outfit, but that's just what we're going to have to go with. So today's topic is the American Revolution. You may have been able to tell that from my coat, from my hat, but not from these glasses. And we're going to go ahead and get started. But before we do, I want to say that our winner of today's contest is going to get a free one-year digital membership. And if you already have a digital membership, we're still going to give that to you and let you give that to someone as a gift, someone that you know, that you love, or if you hate our program, someone that you hate. So let's go ahead and get started with our first question.
Okay, so we still got some people.
Oh, we do have people popping in. Holy moly, 50 players.
Yeah, so let's give people maybe one more minute.
Yeah, we'll give them another minute. I'll go ahead, for those of you already here, I'll go ahead and read the answers off.
Yeah.
The answers are 6, 12, 32, 87, 94, 116, and D. I hope you got those.
All right, so we will close off the players. So just let everyone know we're going to give them 30 more seconds.
Okay, we're going to give it 30 more seconds to get as many players as we can because this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What do we have coming up next?
What is coming up next?
Our vaudeville members.
That's right. So members only this Friday, our digital members are going to get to see a presentation by Marie Walker and I on vaudeville, the history of vaudeville in America. We're going to have some audio-visual things. We're probably going to tell some awful jokes. We're going to talk about the diverse stories that happen with vaudeville and how a lot of vaudeville is still with us. And then next week, we're going to have our LGBTQ presentation about the history of LGBTQ folks in America. And hopefully, we're going to be able to focus a little bit on some regional history with that. And then next Friday is, I can't remember what next Friday is. Something awesome.
We have our virtual book launch on Monday.
That's right. On Monday, we have a virtual book launch on the 29th. We're going to be having our first ever virtual book launch. One of our board members, Dr. Ann Tucker of the University of North Georgia, has a new book coming out about nationalism and the Confederacy and how Europe sort of viewed this new, strange nation that had formed in the Americas and its peculiar institution. So that is going to be happening on June 29th. At 5 p.m., so we hope you'll join us for that. We'll be talking to the author. We're going to get some take on her book and how she wrote it, the research, and some of the great stories from it. So that's a great lineup, even though I forgot what Friday is.
Oh, it's Illuminated Manuscripts.
That's right. Oh, that's right. I've been working on that. How could I have forgotten? We're going to be looking at illuminated manuscripts from the early medieval, middle medieval, and perhaps early Renaissance period. So please be sure and tune into that.
All right, so let's get started.
Okay.
So we're going to go to, we're going to press start.
Press start. So we've got 57 players.
Yeah, that's awesome. So this is just a slide to let them.
So yeah, you can see how it's going to go. No need, but that's what the slides are going to have, and we're going to make it so that you have to answer these questions pretty quickly. 30 seconds. No Googling. You can use your lifeline if you want to, but that's not. I mean, we're not going to check and see if you Google, but let's be honest, folks. Okay, let's show what you can actually do, not your Google foo.
All right, here we go.
First question. The blank required colonists to pay a tax on legal documents and printed materials. So you've got 4 choices there. So you go ahead and pick if it is the Townshend Acts, the Stamp Acts, the Sugar Acts, or the Quartering Acts. Only a few more seconds left. Oh, you better get those answers in quick. Oh my goodness. 0. Yeah, so the answer, of course, was the Stamp Act. So the stamp itself, the dreaded stamp. This was an attempt by Great Britain to enact a tax to pay for the very recent French and Indian War, or as it was called in Europe, the 7 Years' War. The colonists had not been taxed very heavily at all. They had the lowest tax rate in the entire British Empire, and this war they just fought to secure the frontiers of America had been very expensive, and Great Britain had to pay for it somehow. And so the thought was, if they used a stamp, act, the stamp would go on documents. And as the colonies grew and as commerce grew, then they would need more documents, more paper, and the tax would grow along with it. It was a tax that would increase as the colony increased in its size and in its commercial ability. People didn't like this. Why didn't they like it? Because no one in the North American continent voted to have this tax placed upon themselves. This is the beginning of the taxation without representation and was the first step in the disagreement between the American colonists and the British Parliament as to who should have the right to tax who or whom. All right, we're going to go into question number 2.
Yes, having some. Let's see. My monitor, it went away for some reason. Let me fix that really quick.
Yeah, sorry, we're going to fix the technical issues, folks. Now, all of those other acts were actual acts. The Sugar Act was a way to raise funds based on molasses. The Townshend Acts were a series of acts set to enforce and reinforce Parliament's control over the North American colonies without representation. And the Quartering Acts were where British soldiers would be quartered with local families, and the families would have to not only provide a bed, provide room, but provide food for the soldiers. That was such a big deal back in the day that we actually have one of the amendments in the Constitution that forbids it, not one that we usually think of today.
All right, so it looks like our players need a bit more time. So why don't you go ahead and read the next question and the answer selections,
Okay.
and then we'll go once we give them some more time.
Okay, yeah, we'll give you a little bit more time. So question number 2. What was the nautical nickname the colonists gave the British soldiers? A. Crab coats, B. Lobsterbacks, C. Hermit tails, or D. Snapper cuffs? So, what was the nautical nickname the colonists gave the British soldiers? A. Crab coats, B. Lobsterbacks, C. Hermit tails, or D. Snapper cuffs? We're going to go ahead and get that question going
All right, and
now.
here we go. Oh, okay. These are our players that did get the answers.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
Okay, so here's the next question.
So there you go. We've got just a few seconds left, but I've already told you what they're going to be, so get ready.
Oh, I see it's on 20 seconds. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll fix that next time.
Yes, first time doing this.
All right, 0. So the answer is lobsterbacks. Why in the world were they called lobsterbacks? Not because of their love of seafood, but rather because all of their coats were red, right? They're red coats. And this was a slang term, lobsterbacks. Lobsters are red. They turn red in the sun. And so this was a very derogatory term, not one that should be used in polite company, but it certainly got everyone riled up. So, lobsterbacks. British soldiers, actually, they were in a very bad position. You can imagine remember, the military, this is a time when the military force was the police force. And the military and the police in modern world have very different jobs and very different sets of skills and very different goals that they're trying to enact when they go out. This is the big reason that today we have police and the military separate, but back in the 18th century, the British Army was also the police force, and they were trained to basically do things only with one way, with muskets and with bayonets. And so the occupation of especially Boston by the lobsterbacks was seen as a very oppressive act, and we don't want soldiers coming into our homes and sleeping there and eating our food and telling us how we can live today. Same thing back in the 1770s. So, let's go ahead. Do we want to see what scores everyone got, or will that kick it into the next thing?
Okay, so here are scores, and you can give people plenty of time for the
Yes.
next question, having some issues with the timing.
Okay, so we will we'll go on to the next question. So, what was, in total number of soldiers, what was the largest battle of the Revolutionary War? Was it A, the Battle of Long Island, B, the Battle of Newtown, C, the Battle of White Plains, or D, the Battle of Fort Anne? Let me do that one more time. Largest battle of the American Revolution, Battle of Long Island, Battle of Newtown, Battle of White Plains, or Battle of Fort Anne? All right, we're going to go ahead and give you that 20 seconds on the clock. Are you ready? Go. Well, almost go. Oh my gosh, which one was it? I think I know. Oh. I'm like Alex Trebek. I've got all the answers.
Yes.
So I'll sound like I'm smart. Ooh, this was kind of a tough one because you really have to kind of have done some research and be familiar with the battles to know that it was the Battle of Long Island. In other words, up near New York City, the Battle of Long Island. This was early on in the war, and this was the biggest one. There were over, including the sailors and the ships that were involved in the waters around New York City and Long Island, 40,000 soldiers and sailors from both sides involved in this battle. And as the largest battle, this is also the one where the Americans got beat pretty bad. And George Washington, his forces were poorly positioned. He did not prepare for the flanking maneuver that the British were able to do on his troops. They came around the side and they sent the American troops into a literal rout. It was not a very good showing for the American troops or for George Washington's first time out in a large battle. Interesting thing about Washington, he lost more battles than he won. He was not what you would call a successful battlefield commander, and yet strategically he knew what was important. He knew he had to hold that army together and keep it from being overwhelmed no matter what. And so keeping that army going, even though he lost some battles, you can tell from the fact that we're broadcasting today from the United States of America that we did in fact beat the British eventually. Thanks, George, and thanks, soldiers of the Continental Army. All right. We'll get ready to go. Let's see, how many people got that? So 14 people got that right. Still, most people got that right, but like I said, it was kind of a tricky one. Are we almost ready to go to the next question?
Sorry.
That's okay.
All right.
Oh, the technicalities of technicalism.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Maybe don't read the question out until the screen shows the question. We can't do that. Okay, we'll have to go to the next.
All right, where are we at now? The scores. Erica J is coming up with Asher.
All right, so we'll read the next question and we'll leave it on there for
Ooh,
plenty.
Gavi, I wonder if I know who that is. All right, next question. The Hessians fought for the side of the British. Who were they? A, the French, B, Spanish, C, Irish, or D, Germans? Do it again. The Hessians fought for the British in the American Revolution. Who were they? Were they French, Spanish, Irish, or German? Let's go ahead and go to the question. So you can see the question pop up on the screen there. They were people just like you and me. You can see some of their awesome uniforms there. Get those answers in. Almost everyone's got an answer. Quick guess. Oh, see, almost everyone knew that they were the Germans. So the Hessians, you could see from the uniforms, had blue uniforms, and they were large men. There were a lot of them. So King George III was actually one of the electors of the German Empire, and he had control of and very close relations with some of the German states. This is before there was a Germany proper, so there were lots of different states, Saxony, Prussia, Hesse-Kassel, and that's where we actually get the name Hessians. Primarily, these soldiers came from the from the region of Hesse-Kassel, Hesse-Cassel, and they were world-renowned as some of the best, most brutal, most disreputable soldiers in Europe at the time. They were big, they were strong, they came forward in big, huge columns, they marched all together, and they were unstoppable. And they were known, quite frankly, for some of their atrocities. And King George basically contracted with these German states and paid them a lump sum, and they sent their soldiers over to fight on the side of the British in putting down this rebellion. And they behaved kind of poorly. And they came to be seen a couple of different ways by the colonists. Number one, how mad and unfair and unjust is our king if he's having foreigners come to our land to kill us and burn our houses and press us down into oppression. And number two, these were bad people, and they fought very well, but they also sort of galvanized the American forces and had more people come in on their side to say, see, he's bringing in foreigners, bringing in these Germans, these Hessians against us. Let's all join up and kick out the foreigners, because no king who is a just king would have them come and attack us. So those were the Hessians.
So, Glenn, we have a lot of folks having issues. I wonder, is it worth restarting it and giving them a lot more time?
Could we do that?
Yeah, we could do that if we just go to a quick break.
Okay, yeah, we can go.
Or if you want to entertain folks.
We can. I don't know. How long are we talking?
Maybe like 5 minutes, and I can maybe less than 5 minutes, and I can.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what we'll do, folks. We'll have to depend upon your honesty. So we're gonna go start it back, and that'll give you 30 seconds.
Way more. Yeah, I'm gonna give plenty of time so that.
So maybe 45 seconds on the clock. We'll do like 45 seconds on the clock, so that you'll be able to, as the question pops up on the screen, you should have plenty of time to look at the question, think about it, and answer. And that way you won't have to hear me continue droning on with the questions. But we'll need a few minutes to get that set up. And when we get it set up, we'll just have to kind of go through it quick and let you vote the way that you had voted. We're going to use the honor system. Even if you got them wrong, make sure you vote the way you voted until we get to the next question, which I think will be question number 5.
Okay, would you like me to just go to a break?
Let's go to a break screen real quick if we could. Yeah.
All right.
We'll be right back. Stay there. Hey, folks, thanks for your patience. We have it fixed now, we believe. So what I need you to do is go ahead and just log back on to Kahoots like you had done. I think the buttons, I think they're just like you did before. Go ahead and log on, and when everyone's back on, we will go ahead and kind of start over. We'll get those first 4 questions out of the way, and then we will continue the exciting game. You should have plenty of time to answer from here on out. That way you can read the question and hear my response and keep going that way. So there's one player.
Woo! All right, so
There we go.
give them time to join.
Yeah. Oh, good. Lots of our players are coming back. So we, interesting thing about, colonial America and the American Revolution, and we've talked about this in some of the broadcasts we've done, is the difference between the Revolution and the War for Independence, the war to secure the Revolution. So John Adams himself said that the Revolution had already happened well before the first shot was fired because it was a change in the mindset of the people of America. The idea that they refused the supposed right of a king to rule over them, that they refused the sovereignty of the king and of the parliament to make decisions for them, because you have to remember that's a fundamental underlying issue, is that the American colonists saw themselves not having control over their own destinies, with the parliament in Great Britain and the king in parliament determining all of their political life, the taxation, the trade. The trade was controlled and everything. And so the Americans were trying to find a way to control their own destinies. And in a way, that's what every revolution in history has ever been. That's what every struggle has ever been, is for individuals, for communities, and for groups of communities and nations to find a way to self-determine and do what is best for them. Something to remember moving forward in this American Revolution. That's what the idea of revolution should be, but sometimes maybe those revolutions don't always end up achieving those goals like they should. Let's see. So how many? We had like 57 players before, didn't we, Libba? Now we've got 56. Maybe we only...
Yeah.
Oh, 57.
Okay. So let's give another 30 seconds or so.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting more. Awesome. It's a Mario. Excuse me, Mario. We have an entire battleship logged on, the USS United States. That's pretty neat.
All right. I think we are ready.
All right, we're ready to go. Again, folks, this should work this time. I appreciate you being patient with us as you stick here and let us iron out these kinks in the works. But next time it'll be super smooth. So we're going to go ahead and just go to the first question, right?
Yeah.
Y'all know how we've done this before.
Yeah.
So
So here we go. Let's start.
and this is the test slide.
All right. So our first question. You want to? They should have enough time. So
Yeah, you should definitely have enough time. So the blank required colonists to pay a tax on legal documents and printed materials. So now you can see, should have plenty of time to go in there and access that. No Googling. If you want, I tell you what, I will allow if someone wants to dig up some primary sources from your bookshelves, then I will allow that to be used in answering these questions. Primary sources are allowed. Google is not. Yeah, this should be good. I think this should be good. So we're going to have plenty of time to answer the questions here. Because we want to make sure we want this to be fun, of course, and educational, as all things are here at the Northeast Georgia History Center. 61 Sugar Axe, Quartering Axe.
all right. I wish there was a way to just say we're done.
I know.
Too much time.
I bet if you skip the question, it just totally skips it, doesn't it?
That's what I would imagine.
Yeah.
I haven't skipped a question yet.
You can tell we should have played with this a little more and tested each other's knowledge beforehand. But we've got just a few more seconds. 12, 11. I won't count down every time. All right. Here we go.
All right.
Wow, the Stampax. Yeah.
People were still honest.
People were still pretty honest about that. That's fantastic. So now we know how much time we've got. Looks like everyone can get in. So we're going to go ahead and just see what the scores were, those for initial scores, and going on to the next question.
All right, here we go.
The nautical nickname, the colonists called the British soldiers. You can see that picture there. There's an enlisted man on the left and an officer on the right, but their red coats are quite distinguished and distinguishable.
And you might want to note that you do get more points for answering quickly.
Ah, yes, good. So you get more points the quicker that you answer. So if you know the answer or think you know the answer, click that button just as fast as you can, because as you answer sooner, you get more points. Looks like we've definitely got the hang of it now.
Okay, good. Glenn, what are the
Yeah.
Revolutionary sites that you've been to before?
Oh my goodness, the revolutionary sites I've been to. It's funny, I haven't been to that many in the north because it's so far away from here in Northeast Georgia. And the more I've studied about the American Revolution, especially once I got into college, I realized that the Southern theater was incredibly interesting. So I've been to quite a few sites for the Southern theater, for the battlefield sites. And, we can go into those and maybe after the next question. But there's a lot that you can see in the South that's not necessarily in the books that talk about the broad scheme of things. And I always encourage folks to go visit the battlefields.
Courtney says if you click skip, it just goes on before time is over if you think everyone has answered by then. So that's good.
Okay, yeah, then we'll try that.
We'll try skip.
Okay, so of course, lobsterbacks is the answer. Again, if folks being honest, I like that.
Here we go. All right, going on to the next one. Oh, I actually have to flip it over here. There we go. All right, we got
Ellie,
in the lead.
there we go, 1983. That was a good year. Largest battle, and again, we talked about this, but these battles, to my knowledge, I think maybe White Plains is the only one that you can actually visit, because so many sites of American history, whether they're battlefields or just events, have been covered up by progress, by housing and things like that. So if you get a chance to visit the actual site where a lot of these things happen, again, I am just the biggest proponent of that. First of all, it's a nice walk in the outdoors, and it's nature, right? It's green space that you can always enjoy. Plus, just getting a sense of what the land was like, almost just plain army when you go out there and kind of get a sense of how they had to move, the areas they had to go through, can make a big difference and how you appreciate how a battle or a historic event went forward. Plus, there's just that amazing feeling of standing on the same ground in the same spot, touching the same dirt where so many of these amazing things happened.
All right.
All right.
So we got the Battle of Long Island.
All right. Wonderful.
Ooh,
Oh, Erica J. Wow, that was a big score change.
All right, here we go. Question 5.
All right, back to the Hessians, those crazy Germans. And again, you see their uniforms. So you think of the American Continental Army as having the blue uniforms, sort of like I've got the brown here, but with the red facings. You see the Prussians had those blue uniforms, and the fellow on the right is a grenadier, and the grenadiers were chosen from all the different nations' armies as the biggest, strongest men, and they would in each regiment, and they would take those men and put them into one company, the Grenadier Company, and they were the ones that the toughest missions were given to. Those big, tall bearskin hats certainly marked them out on the battlefield, and they were sort of the elite of each regiment. You notice he also has a very stylish upturned mustache That was a very, very German Hessian thing to have.
They said, way to give the answer, but we already went through that.
Yeah, we knew what the answer was on that one.
All right, so I think everybody, I'm going to try the skip now.
Yeah, we're going to do the skip.
Yay! Okay,
All right.
Okay, so this is now our new question.
Yes, now we're into the questions that no one has seen before.
All right, let's see who's in the score.
Blue Patrick. Ellie's still making her way up there.
Here we go.
All right. Who was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army? George Washington, the Marquis de Lafayette, Nathan Hale, or John Paul Jones? Now, each one of those, of course, are real people. You just have to figure out which one was actually put in charge of the Continental Army. There's a picture. You can see that classic Continental coat with the blue coat with the red cuffs and facings. And on the officer on a horse, which always, that helps the officer to see what's going on the battlefield and to give commands to his men, but it also makes him one heck of a target because there he is. It's really obvious who's in charge. He's up above everyone, and so if you can take out the officer, it's a dangerous thing to be an officer in this time period. So.
All right, I think we've got everyone in. Okay.
I think so.
And
George Washington, of course, was the commander of the Continental Army. Now, not at first. The first armies were those in Massachusetts that fought at Lexington and Concord and then surrounded the British when they were in Boston. And it wasn't until the Continental Congress decided to adopt the Army, which it did on June 14th, actually just the anniversary of that was a couple of days ago, June 14th, 1775, that they then needed a commander. And everyone thought it was going to be a Bostonian because most of these troops were from Massachusetts. Turns out that they were trying to create a unified effort to fight against the British, so they chose a Virginian who must be at the head of these things, George Washington, who had the most military experience of anyone who was at the Continental Congress. All right, but most people knew that.
ooh, Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer 777.
All right, next.
This enslaved man worked as a double agent for the colonies, giving the British false information to foil their plans. Was it Peter Salem, Crispus Attucks, James Armistead Lafayette, or Colonel Ty? Again, this one's kind of a tough one because all the names there are actual African Americans who were involved in the American Revolution in some way. Getting there. Only a couple more folks to give their answers. All right. What do we got? So the correct answer is James Armistead Lafayette. It looks like most people picked Crispus Attucks, and quite honestly, that's the African American that most people think of when they think of the American Revolution. Crispus Attucks was, of course, an African American who was killed in the Boston Massacre in 1770. Really, the first American to die for the cause of liberty was this African American. But James Armistead Lafayette was an enslaved person during the American Revolution who exchanged information for the Continental Army, and his name at that point was James Armistead. But after the war, the Marquis de Lafayette petitioned America to petition the Congress to grant him his freedom because of his service to the Continental Army, and that was granted. And to show his affection and his appreciation to the Marquis de Lafayette, he assumed Lafayette's last name, and so he has come to us through history as James Armistead Lafayette. Really cool story. We'll go to the next question. Let's see, where are we at? Oh, Gavi's taking the lead. Oh, and Olivia Burke in third. What intellectual movement shaped the American Revolution? Was it modernism, the Enlightenment, scholasticism, or objectivism? So many isms and one mit. Shuffle papers, that's how you know I'm an official host. I see, it seems like people are kind of thinking about this one. And for those of you who are students and when you go back to school, I hope that you show more enthusiasm and respect for your teachers than that group of people is showing for the gentleman who's trying to talk to them there. A lot of them don't seem very interested. So you don't let that be the paradigm of your hope. Only a couple more folks to make an answer.
They're going to their bookshelves.
Oh, yeah, they're going to find out what their primary sources say. Oh, yeah, only 10 seconds. There's one.
Of course, it's delayed for them. So.
Right. Here we go. What is the answer? The Enlightenment. Almost everyone got that. The Enlightenment was a movement, and we've talked about this in a couple of our different live streams. Talked about it yesterday a little bit in Lo-Fi History on Twitch. If you want to start tuning into that and see us lay down some beats as well as share some history. The Enlightenment was a movement that wanted to apply ration and reason to lots of different things in the world, the natural world, economics, and the political world. And so they tried to find ways where they could find the best solution for government that would be of the most benefit of people and, again, allow them to control their own destiny. And it's interesting, the Enlightenment came up with ideas like representation and Republicans, they didn't come up with it, but they said that maybe these are the ways, democracy, and that a nation should choose its own path based on the citizenry, not just on one person, the monarch. And if the revolution had happened just a few years before or a few years after, it would have looked very different. But the American Revolution sort of happened at the absolute peak of the Enlightenment. Let's go to see what our scores are here. Oh, that's a close one between Gavi and Fluffy Cat. All right, next question. He helped gain financial support for the colonies by hobnobbing with the French aristocracy. Was it Thomas Jefferson, Roger Sherman, John Adams, or Benjamin Franklin? Let's see. I know the answer.
Nick asks, what's in that tanker, Glenn?
Only water today. Only water. That's another interesting picture. You can see that this is in France, and it is definitely the aristocracy with the fancy dresses, and the biggest giveaway are those hairstyles of the ladies. That required a lot of work and a lot of time, and a lot of them, they would have wigs made that they could just plop on their head because it would take so long to try to fix their hair for a proper social event. Looks like we've gotten answers from everyone. The answer, of course, is Benjamin Franklin. Now, some of you voted for Thomas Jefferson, and Thomas Jefferson was America's diplomat to the French court after Benjamin Franklin. During the American Revolution, Benjamin Franklin was tasked by the Continental Congress to get not only recognition from the French court and from the French nation, but to get support in terms of money, and they loaned us a lot of money, and navies and soldiers. And so you get to the point where the attack against Savannah, which failed, but then the surrounding of the British Army at Yorktown that was under Cornwallis by George Washington and Rochambeau set the course. And let's be honest, it was French support of the American cause that assured us victory in the Revolution. Without the French, the odds are pretty strong that we never would have been able to achieve independence. So thank you, Benjamin Franklin. Thank you, the French. Oh, the leaderboard stayed the same almost. So what's our next question? This woman disguised herself as a man and joined the 4th Massachusetts State Regiment. Was it Deborah Sampson, Deborah Harry, Deborah Gibson, or Deborah Day? Now, this is an important question. It's somewhat remarkable because, of course, women were not allowed or expected to serve in the military in this time period. That went for the British, that went for the Hessians, that went for the Americans. But the Americans, being a somewhat more striving towards egalitarianism, you could say, a lot of people wanted to participate in any way that they could to secure American liberties and secure American freedoms. And a lot of women did a lot of different things in a traditional role in terms of following the army and helping with that as nurses, as cooks, as laundresses, as social agitators even. But very, very few actually entered into military service, and they had to hide the fact, of course, and disguise the fact that they were a woman, because otherwise they would not have been allowed to participate from a military soldier type perspective. And the answer is Deborah Sampson. She actually spent 17 months in the Army under the name, let me make sure I get this right, of Robert Shurtleff, and was eventually discovered to be a woman. You can't hide out in the Army for she did it for 17 months, but eventually things happen and you're going to be discovered. But after she was discovered, she was the only woman, I believe, that was given an honorable discharge from the Continental Army. So that just goes to show you that women were able to participate in a lot of different ways. That I can assure you that we don't have any records of women serving in the British Army. That's a little more regimented, if you'll pardon the pun. Oh, it's close. It's close. Let's go to the next question. This British general became Governor General of India after surrendering at the Battle of Yorktown. I may have previously already given that one away.
Oh, did you?
Oh my goodness! I should look over these and make sure I don't give anything away anymore. So, was it Thomas Gage, Charles Cornwallis, Edward Hand, or George Germain? All figures in the British body that helped try to keep America from breaking away as an independent country. Getting up there. And the paintings from this period that showed some of the events, they're not terribly realistic probably. They're very romanticized. But goodness help me, I just love those romanticized views because everyone is in the most interesting poses. They're pointing, or they're bending over, or their bodies in this most uncomfortable looking position that if you ever try to put yourself in that position, you can't stay there for very long. But paintings from this period are really, really interesting. The answer, of course, is Charles Cornwallis. I think I said that before when I was talking about Yorktown, but yeah, so, and at the time, we think of Cornwallis as the guy that we beat. It's at the Battle of Yorktown, and we secure our liberty. Back in Great Britain, he wasn't blamed for this. He was sort of seen as a hero who did his best while other generals were out dilly-dallying. And as a reward for his faithful service in the American Revolution, as you saw, he became Governor General of India. That was not a small thing or an insignificant thing. And he died actually in that office. So Gabby and Fluffy Cat still there. Before the American Revolution, calling someone a blank was an insult. Was it a loyalist, a patriot, a colonist, or a Brit? That's all right. Sorry, we're actually having a little bit of trickiness in the studio here. Okay. So loyalist, patriot, colonist, or Brit? Someone is having a disagreement in a tavern, I believe. Some people are sort of laughing at it, but there's a guy with a stick and there's a guy with the fire tongs from the fireplace. Fire tongs were very often grabbed as a makeshift weapon in a variety of pub brawls, as the sources indicate.
Looks like everybody's got their answer.
All right.
Here we go.
The answer is patriot. Of course, patriotism and being a patriot today is something that is considered high marks, but at the time, before the American Revolution, a patriot was considered a rebel, a scallywag, a rapscallion, a ne'er-do-well. It was not a very complimentary thing to say to someone, but of course the patriot cause eventually changed that into something that we today see as something good. Olivia Burks shot into the lead on that one. Next question. This natural disaster in 1775 gave colonists a sense of victory over the British. Was it the Liberty Downpour, the American earthquake, the Revolutionary tornado, or the Independence hurricane? Or hurricane, if you want to be British about it.
Ashley says, this is so much fun. Thanks, Northeast Georgia History Center.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. Now, this one, you're probably looking at these answers and thinking that we made these up. This is a real thing. Well, the correct answer is a real thing. And that ship is so close to the shore, I don't think it's going to make it. It's probably too late for that ship. All right, there we go. I think we've got 64 players. So the answer is the Independence hurricane. The picture was sort of a good clue for that one, but in Newfoundland, this hurricane happened and did a lot of damage to the British ships. And Americans, of course, saw this as the hand of divine providence striking down their enemy. And the British perhaps saw this as, well, maybe it is divine providence trying to strike us down. Maybe it was just the weather. But either way, the Americans were able to play this for some great propaganda. Olivia Burke and Gabby there, and Pfeiffer 777 coming back up. The blank occurred when British soldiers opened fire on a crowd after the crowd verbally and physically assaulted them. Or as we say, pew, pew, pew. Was it the Boston Massacre, the Massachusetts March, the Boston Tea Party, or the Bay Party Massacre? Now, I bet most of you are probably going to be very familiar with which one this is. And again, this print that we're showing of some British soldiers and their officer was a very, very popular print in the day. We're going to go a little bit over our time, but hopefully y'all don't mind and will stick around with us because we're having fun. We hope you are. All right. Of course, the Boston Massacre. I say that very good. Oh, the Boston Massacre. The soldiers were there to keep order. The city of Boston was basically occupied by the British Army, and the British soldiers would have several posts that they would have to guard throughout the day, every single day, every week, every month. And crowds did not like this, and crowds began to gather, and they began to first verbally assault, and then physically assault these soldiers. And in a matter of self-defense, The soldiers, who again are having to act as a police force, end up firing into the crowd to defend themselves. And you would think that the soldiers firing into the crowd would be automatic means for being sentenced, right? This is state violence against a protesting crowd. Well, the protesting crowd had gotten violent. Of all people, John Adams is the one who takes their case. And John Adams shows that the protest had grown so violent that the soldiers had no choice, and the soldiers are all acquitted of the charge of murder because of their actions. Very interesting time in American history, although I will say that the fourth answer there that two people picked, the Bay Party Massacre, might not have been the correct answer, but it would make a great name for an 80s band, I think. The Bay Party Massacre. Well, Olivia's still up top, but Pfeiffer 77 is coming up close. Next question. Which treaty ended the American Revolution? The Treaty of Versailles, the Treaty of Paris, the Treaty of New York, or the Treaty of Florence? And you can see from the picture there, the treaty that we're speaking of was, Benjamin Franklin was a part of that, and Thomas Jefferson is back there as well. And this went back and forth for some time, exactly what the treaty was going to say. The one thing that Americans knew the treaty had to say was that Britain recognized the independence of the 13 colonies as individual, separate, and sovereign entities. This was the whole reason for the American Revolution. This was the whole reason for the War of Independence. And of course, the treaty does, in fact, guarantee that from the British government, along with a lot of other details, including what's going to happen to some of the slaves that had been captured by the British or captured by the American forces. I guess that's everyone's answer.
All right, let's see what it is.
So the answer is the Treaty of Paris, called the Treaty of Paris because it was arranged in Paris and signed in Paris and had to be ratified, of course, but it was ratified so the Battle of Yorktown happened 1781. The Treaty of Paris is signed in 1783. About a year and a half there when the war is still going on. And this is something most people don't realize. There are still battles that happen. There's still a lot of things that the Americans at the time aren't sure how it's going to go. And it's not settled until a year and a half after the conclusive Battle of Yorktown. That's our leaderboards. Oh, still those two. Gavi's fallen, but CWC is coming back up. Disagreements in this Native American Confederacy on who to side with in the American Revolution sparked an internal civil war with that tribe. Was it the Iroquois, the Cherokee, Cornstalk, or Moravians? And the image there is of a typical sort of a town meeting. The Native Americans would very often come together. They had such an interesting form of self-government. They would come together, they would make a discussion, and the people involved in the council would reach a decision, and the decision was set, and yet no member of the tribe was necessarily bound by that decision. It was an attempt to sort of create a consensus, but not everyone who participated, and nor every member of the tribe had to abide by that decision. This was very frustrating to Europeans as they would try to interact with Native Americans, and they would come to conclusions, and they would sign treaties, and they would wonder, well, why do these Indians over here not agree? Why are they not abiding by the treaty we signed? Well, because according to Native American perspectives, they're not bound to abide by a treaty that they do not agree with. Almost there, yeah. One, bing. The Iroquois Confederacy. This was probably the biggest and strongest conglomeration of Native American power in the North American continent. It consisted of at first 5 and then 6 individual tribes, and they were very, very much a central authority and tried to sort of control the situation, play the French and the British off against each other. When the French were kicked out, they played the British and the American patriots off against each other, and they tried to assert their power over a very large domain over other different Native American tribes. And the Iroquois Confederacy is a very interesting critter when you start to look at it. It was the closest Native Americans in the North American continent ever came to creating a unified approach to dealing with European colonists. But even then, once the powers that be, they played off against each other. Once it came down to just the Americans, after independence, the Iroquois Confederacy very quickly lost power and significance in the region and in the United States. Wow, Olivia is on fire. Next question. Why were the early soldiers of the colonies, or some of the soldiers of the colonies, known as Minutemen? First, they were killed within a minute. Second, they could transcribe a message within a minute. They were ready to fight within a minute, or they could fire 3 shots within 1 minute. And you see some of the representation of some of the soldiers there, the very early militia. Remember, this is before America had a formal army, a formal continental army with regular soldiers in regular uniforms. The militia usually consisted of just every able-bodied male between certain ages, usually about 18 to 40. They would come in their own clothes, they would carry their own weapons, provide their own ammunition, and gather together. But what that meant was they may not be organized, they may have a lot of different weapons, but that meant that every male in an area was considered a soldier and could be called to defend their township or their area if necessary. Couple people still thinking and pondering on that one. Oh, they had to scoot out? Okay, yeah, so we'll go ahead and go. Of course, the answer is they were ready to fight within a minute. Now, this is not every militiaman, and this is not even every Massachusetts or Boston militiaman, but to prepare for what they saw as a threat from the British Army, they decided that certain members of their militia, certain small companies, would be Minutemen, and they called them this because they were to be ready in a minute. They were not, it's not just that their musket and powder horn were sitting nearby and they could grab it and run. They were actually considered on duty or on call, and they would station themselves in groups at certain areas at certain times so that when word came, they could move as a group and literally be ready to go do something within a minute. But since that time, we've sort of given the term Minuteman to anyone who was there at Lexington or Concord. That is not the case, technically. Scott's moving up. Yeah, so we've got some quick ones coming up. So that's the end of our multiple choice. Points are double. We're going to go to straight up true or false. So it's a sort of not a sudden death round, but we're going to move a lot quicker. So, true or false? Double the points. Despite being named the Battle of Bunker Hill, it was not fought at Bunker Hill. True or false?
Man, the timing is not.
Oh, the timing's acting all weird.
Oh, sorry, folks. Maybe we should just go with the scores of
You want to go with the scores before that?
Yeah, I think that's. Hey, folks, it's Libba here behind the scenes. Looks like the timing didn't work for the true or false. So I think what we ought to do, especially given that we're running out of time on our end as well, we should go with the scores that appear next, and I think that'll determine our winner. Does that sound all right with you?
I think that's good.
All right, and thank you so much for being here today. This is the first time that we've used Kahoot, so I do appreciate your patience, and we would love to do more of these now that we are figuring things out, how to run this smoothly. Please let us know what other topics you think we should have trivia nights on, because we really like to do themes. So in the comments, we'll be reading those. Let us know what topic you would love our next series of trivia games to be about. All right, drum roll, please, everyone. And our winner is Pfeiffer
777.
Congratulations, Pfeiffer 777. So, Pfeiffer, please message us on our Facebook page so we can get your email and award you with a free digital membership to the Northeast Georgia History Center.
Yay!
Unless you already have one, and then you can gift it to someone.
Gift it to someone. and congratulations to our top 5. Of course, number 2 there, but number 1 in our hearts is Olivia Burke with 19,849. Scott with 17,617. CWC with 16,380. And 5th grade 10 with 15,697. That was... Those leaders were pretty much just back and forth, and we didn't know how it was going to turn out. But that's fantastic. Thank you so much for playing. We hope that you had fun playing, but we also hope that some of our interspersed commentary was also able to elucidate some things. If you don't like that, then please let us know, and we can just go straight to a game. But, of course, I like talking about it. And we can get other people in here to host some of these trivias, some more topic experts on things. So, yes, Pfeiffer 777, please let us know. We hope you enjoyed this. Again, please tune in. If you're not already a digital member, please consider doing that. It's only $3 a month or $35 a year, and you'll be able to see lots of exclusive content. But if you don't want to do that, just tell all your friends and neighbors that we've got these great programs here at the Northeast Georgia History Center. And until the next time we see you, we hope all of you have a great time, stay safe, and take care.
Thanks, everyone.